Yates is a former Deputy Assistant on National Security Affairs to Vice President Dick Cheney. Mr. Yates, great to see you. Hagel voted against sanctions on Iran. He objected to naming Hezbollah and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard terrorist groups. He advocated direct talks with Hamas, which is, as you know, a terrorist group. And that's just a slice of his record. So just how controversial might Hagel be?
I think his nomination would be exceedingly controversial. I think he'd be the most controversial nominee since John Tower was put forward by the first President Bush, and of course that nomination failed, creating the way for Secretary of Defense Cheney at the time. I mean, really, you're correct. His list of controversial statements are long. He said the surge in Iraq, if implemented, would be the greatest strategic blunder of the United States since the Vietnam War. So in addition to being controversial, he's been wrong many times.
Yeah, in fact, you told one of our producers this. Hagel has been wrong about every major foreign policy decision over the last decade, and the president, you say, seems to admire it. Really?
In a certain way, I think President Obama admires people who are willing to stand out against the grain. And in some ways, that can be leadership. In other ways, you're just wrong. Senator Hagel was an early advocate of engagement with the mullahs in Iran and others in the region who were terrorist organizations, and was very skeptical of any form of success in Afghanistan and Iraq from very early times. Really, he has never put forward a policy proposal to solve a problem. It questions sanctions, and if you take away sanctions and you offer only engagement with Iran, where do you go with the nuclear problem there?
Right. Conservative Rich Lowry wrote the following. We'll put it up on our screen. Quote, "It's not clear what draws Obama to Hagel. Maybe it's the superciliousness, or maybe it's the gesture toward bipartisanship his nomination would supposedly represent." Would he gain enough Republican support?
I have real doubts about whether any Republicans would naturally want to vote in favor. And the caveat to that is, in general, presidents get their nominees for national security posts, especially re-elected presidents, and so odds would favor confirmation. But I suspect that Senator Hagel would receive the fewest votes of any successful nominee in the history of the position.
Yeah. What do you think the selection of Chuck Hagel would say about President Obama's foreign policy values and views?
Well, I think you look at this and say, going forward, together with Senator Kerry going to the State Department, should he be confirmed, you have a decidedly more liberal National Security Council, a less interventionist National Security Council, one that favors dialogue and negotiations. And given that we've had 2 years of tumult in the broader Middle East, I think more confusion about what exactly the United States would do to stand by allies and support those who favor freedom.
Hagel made a regrettable reference to the quote-unquote Jewish lobby, which the head of the ADL called borderline anti-Semitism. Was that simply the slip of a tongue, or was it evidence of a larger disdain for Israel, and is that a sentiment that may be shared by President Obama?
I can't, unlike some previous leaders, I can't look into his soul and know what his core beliefs are when it comes to Israel and the religion of Judaism. But his record in public policy has been very sympathetic to those he saw as the downtrodden in the broader Middle East, and that led him to seem to have more sympathy for the Palestinian side in Israel-Palestine negotiations. And as you say, he's been easily open to the idea of negotiating with what many of others would consider bad guys in the region. Believing in the power of engagement more than power of force or other incentives.
I got 20 seconds left, but does he have any management experience? I mean, the Pentagon is huge.
Pentagon is the largest management responsibility short of commander-in-chief, and he has some in ownership of a cellular network and investment banking, but that pales in comparison to the number of employees dependent on a Secretary of Defense.
Stephen Yates, as always, good to see you.